right, so this is the king fry. And what this is basically a more grown-up version of the squirmy Alevin that we did last time. And as you can see, this is the squirmy Alevin right here. These things are getting a little bit bigger, a little bit more minnow-like. They've absorbed that yolk sac, and their head is a little bit more defined, and they're starting to get these parr marks on here. So, but this is a very simple fly, and a little bit different than the Alevin in that now they're a little bit stronger, and they can actually sort of fight against the current much better than these Alevin could. So these Alevin, in the last video I said you could kind of swing them, and you can, but it's a very, very soft swing. Like basically just a rod lift and just let it carry. With this new fly, the king fry, being that they're a little bit bigger, a little more muscular, these things can actually legitimately swim a little bit better. So these will translate better to a swung presentation. So you can dead drift these with an egg and just kind of tumble them along the bottom, and then at the end just kind of lift the rod and sort of carry it and swing it. And a lot of times that's even better than the dead drift. So, but it's a very, very easy fly to tie. Tie these on a size 6 egg hook, and I like these Gamakatsu C14S. Just a nice sharp stout hook, straight eye. And I like that it's kind of a nickel tone. It's a little bit darker. So I don't know, it's a good hook. You could use any size 6 egg hook that's similar to this. That Boss Steelhead hook would work fine as well. And then there's only a few ingredients on this one. The body itself is just 2 different colors of laser dub. The top is the silver minnow belly. It's good stuff. It's real flashy, a lot of flash built in. And then the bottom of it is just white laser dub. I use this on a lot of stuff. It's got good UV flash into that purple stuff. It's just a different wavelength of light that the fish react to nicely. And then if you want, you can add a couple little strands of crystal flash off the back. Gives it a little bit of a lateral line appearance. And then the eyes are just these 3D adhesive eyes in the 3/16 size. So like normally like a 4mm eye would work on this one. So we can start here and get your hook going. And then on this one, the thread I like is the Vivus 6/0 fluorescent orange. And I kind of like the orange because it kind of looks like the very last remnants of that yolk sac still kind of in there. So when this fly does get wet, that bright thread will kind of shine through there and just gives it more dimension. So you could probably use white, you could even use red, but I just like this orange. It's just, even when it's wet, it still keeps this really bright tone. So just do a good thread base here. Kill this tag. And then like I said, you could add a couple strands of crystal flash. And this is just pearl crystal flash. So I just would do one little piece, tie it down right at the heart of it, okay? And then fold that front portion back. So now you've got 2 little filaments going back right off the bend of the hook here. And you can just cut it about the same length as the shank. Again, it just adds a little bit of flash, catches a little bit of light. So then go forward, so you're right behind the eye. And again, this fly is very, very easy, very simple. There's just a couple steps here. So first we're gonna do the bottom, and it's gonna be this white laser dub. Whenever you use this stuff, when it comes in the bag, it's just all these fibers are running in every which direction. So when you get it out of the bag, it's good to separate it a few times like this, and then stack it on itself. And what you're doing here is you're getting all those fibers running the same direction. So it should end up with just a small tuft of this stuff, just about like that. And then I like to flip the vise and kind of spread this dubbing. So you've got 2 kind of tufts. And then that will make it easier to get it around the hook bend. But basically you just lay this in here. You don't need much of this stuff. So we're gonna keep that one, this portion sort of on the bottom of the hook. Okay, so that's gonna be our belly. Flip this over, switch to silver minnow, Same thing here, get these fibers running the same direction. And then kind of thin it out. Don't need a whole lot of this stuff. There's really not much to these things. They're almost translucent. So the less dubbing you use is almost better. So something about like that. Maybe even less actually. Yeah, that ought to do it, just like this. Okay, so here's our top. Gonna lay this right in. Same exact thing. Tighten that down. Okay, good. So here, this is where I like to just whip finish it. It's kind of tricky to whip finish in front of these two tufts of dubbing coming forward, but if you don't use a tool, it makes it easier. And if you wanted, you could just put some glue on the thread and just wrap it in there, and same thing as a whip finish. Okay, so now we're gonna cut our thread. We're done with that. So now it's gonna be all Loctite from here on out. And we're gonna use these adhesive eyes, the domed ones. The last fly, that Alevin, I like those living eyes, the real thin ones. These ones, being that they're a little bit dome shaped, it just actually gives it a little more weight actually, and it just gives the head a little bit more mass to it. So same thing, we're gonna be using Loctite gel. It can be the time control or it can be the blue bottle, as long as it's a gel of some kind. Get this thing running here. Okay, so I'm gonna fold each tuft of dubbing back. And it should form a little minnow shape here. And we can trim this excess here once we get the eyes on, but okay, here we go. So eye number one, you can go right in line with the hook shank. Okay, there's eye number one. You can use a little tool to put some pressure on this thing. Okay. Okay, eye number two, same exact thing. All right, looking good. Okay, that's the basic idea there. And then lastly, same as before, some of this loon stuff helps to add a little bit of strength to the skull of this thing. So you can just come in and just add a little dot up here and then use this nozzle to just sort of spread it back. Helps to keep its shape, and it just makes for a little bit more of a durable fly. And let's see that orange shining through there. Looks good. All right, so last detail is gonna be our Sharpie. And we're gonna add these parr marks. These are called parr marks. And I like to add just about like 4 or 5. It might be hard to see on camera here, but I like to take this marker and just sort of make quick little hash marks, basically. 3, 4, 5. That's all you need, just something to give it a little contrast. And then do the same thing on the other side. That should do it. And as you can see, it's a little bit long back here. So you can take your scissors, just thin it. And I like to sort of just twist it. Gives it a little bit more of a defined shape. But that is it. That's the king fry. And like I said, it's the next kind of life stage after these Alevin. So getting a little bit bigger, a little bit more of a defined vertebrae. Eyes are a little bit bigger, and the hook is a little bit bigger. But these things are super fun to fish. Like I said, you can roll them and tumble them like a nymph and then swing them out at the end. Awesome way to catch steelhead and trout. Usually in like April, you know, the month of April, this is a good fly to run, even into May. And you'd be surprised how many of these things there are in the river, especially if you look at the soft kind of eddies. You'll see hundreds of these things sitting along the bank in these slow, soft currents, usually up kind of against the grass banks or any kind of log jam, and they tend to hang out together in groups. So yeah, there's a lot of these things, and it's a great food source. There are certain days with steelhead where they're not quite eating egg flies real well. If you notice that, try one of these, and a lot of times this can be the key. For whatever reason, there are certain days where they're just not keyed in on eggs and they're more focused on eating these things. So tie some of these up, let us know what you think, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks.